For way too long, the story of Nigeria's development has always focused on cities. When you talk about Nigeria, or you speak about Nigeria to those who are not Nigerians, they would mention cities like Lagos, they'll mention Abuja, they'll mention Port Harcourt. In some cases, they'll mention Ibadan. They can sometimes add Enugu to the mix, and you know how these things, and of course Kano. And the interesting thing is that we focus on these urban areas at the expense of our rural areas. See, it will surprise you to know that our rural areas is Our rural areas is where about 47% of our population where they live. So you can imagine that almost half of Nigerians are left out of national imagination. So you and I just had an imagination of Nigeria's development where people think about, and we just, or most times when we talk, we just wipe off almost half of our people in our imagination, in our thinking. It's quite sad, it's tragic, it's painful, and that's because rural Nigeria is not just lagging behind, it's a sleeping giant, full of potentials, full of people, full of possibilities, with no evidence. It's quite painful that these people, despite the fact that it's almost half of our population, they contribute nearly a fraction of our GDP as a country. Why? Because our infrastructures. Did I say infrastructure? Actually, our systems. You're talking of infrastructure, you're talking about education, you're talking health, and even governance. It's so much centered on urban areas at the expense of the rural communities. And you know what the twist is? Most of the Nigerian grown foods that we consume, what we eat, comes from this place. They have most of our arable lands, the most of our untapped human capital potential that we need to use to power future industries. They are lying fallow in these communities. That's how tragic and sad the situation is. If you're new here, my name is Ajibola Oladiipo, and you're welcome to another episode of the Diary of a Patriot. Today, we are having a conversation on rural Nigeria. Yes, rural Nigeria as a sleeping giant of development. So, I really want you to think of a smart kid living in Ikoyi, learning how to code. He has a MacBook, he has access to 5G internet, and stay in Ikoyi, and there's this little tiny Ajin somewhere in Kishi, in Oyo State, and every morning she has to walk 3 kilometers to actually fetch water before going to school. It's a reality. That's the reality of some people, and quite frankly, to be very, very honest, it's very funny that this is still the reality of so many people. People like some of our parents actually did experience that in the 50s and 60s. But in 2025. But that's the reality. You see, this digital infrastructure and opportunity divide, it's not just sad, it's very, very dangerous. It threatens national unity. It undermines our development goals as well. But that's the reality. But then, what if I told you that the next agricultural revolution that's going to happen in this country will not happen in Lagos? What if I told you that it's going to happen in some village in Sokoto or somewhere in Ebonyi, or probably some Imeko from axis of Ogun State? What if I told you that? Would you believe that? The truth of the matter is that we have millions of hectares of uncultivated land in rural Nigeria. We have youth populations that are actually eager to work, but no opportunities. I get to visit some of these villages, and I see people who have nothing to do. Sometimes some of them just sleep, go out just to hunt for animals, to actually like kill and eat. Yeah, I'm wondering that, am I serious? I'm actually serious. Like in 2025, like that's the reality. It's not funny, and it's funny at the same time. They also have this deep cultural capital for tourism. We are talking about renewable energy, like the potential for it's right there. I'll keep talking about my experience in my degree. The kind of sun that beats me in that place, it will power solar energy, and you use it to irrigate like tons and millions of farmlands. In fact, it will power your cold storage infrastructures. That's the reality, that's the truth. But then, why are we not accessing these assets? See, it's very simple. You have plenty of bad roads. In some cases, you have to park your car, then get Okada, yes, to carry you. You reach some point, you use your leg. Some other cases, you use your leg because you need to cross a river. That's the reality. They don't have good roads. They've been neglected for decades, and governance is weak. So we're now asking, what's holding us back as a nation? Are we not forgetting that those people are also part of us? They're also Nigerians. The infrastructural deficit, the education gap, we really don't care about them. The weak local governance. I've always spoken about local government autonomy, and I'll constantly and consistently advocate for autonomy of local governments. This is because it makes it easier for governance to get to these people. So government's attention, government's footprints would reach people in these communities and areas if we take these things more seriously. Policy blind spots. See, check through our policy documents. Most times when we plan as a nation, when we make plans as a nation, we don't we don't factor these people in. We don't put them into consideration, and that's very, very unfair. You are not they're as Nigerian as I am and as you are. You're not more Nigerian than they are. Yes, and even Mr. President is not more Nigerian than they themselves are. So, and I'm saying this because we can't keep ignoring talking about developments while we ignore half of the country, or almost half of the country. That's not realistic. So what must we do? We need to wake the sleeping giant. Yes, wake the sleeping giants. How do we do this? Decentralized development. Yes. See, let's invest directly in rural infrastructure, not just roads, ICT, mini grids. Yes, I talked about irrigation powered by solar. Let them have mini grids. Rural Electrification Agency was supposed to ensure that electricity reaches all of our rural areas. But we have we have nothing to show for it. In some cases, many of those places, power lines are used to dry clothes. I saw something like that in remote Ibadan sometime September last year. High tension cables that power is supposed to, they use it to do what? To spread their clothes, because they know that light is not coming. So these are the reality. Empower local governors. Please tell your lawmakers, tell your governor, help us to beg Mr. President also to sit down on their neck and ensure that local government's autonomy is actually functional. Let local governments be empowered to reach people directly. We should also be able to extend the hands of helping them skill up, particularly with tech, embracing tech. Let's lend those hands. NGOs and stuff, development agencies, development partners should also factor the rural communities into projects that they are working on. Let's make these people our priority. We can use cooperatives to group farmers in these areas, link them to markets, provide finance, scale productivity. That's even agriculture related. Children don't go to school, they don't have access to power to read after school and all of that. You could have a hub, powered by what's it called, mini grid, solar grid, what's it called, solar. Alternate energies, alternate means of energy, whether solar or what have you, any model we could think of, just to ensure that, you're not just using that, use that to ensure that what's it called, their boreholes are working, they have access to water, they don't have to trek 3 kilometers. A gym will not have to trek 3 kilometers to go and fetch water every day in Kishi. And for private companies that are actually taking the bull by the horn and investing in local or rural areas, let government give them tax breaks. Yes, let's encourage companies to invest in these people. That's the only way we can promote Nigeria first. Rural Nigeria is not a body, no. It is not. It is our biggest untapped opportunity. Yes, our biggest untapped opportunity. That's where it is. So if you want a prosperous, a stable and equitable Nigeria, we have to go rural. That's where the work is. And to be very honest, let's come to think about it. All of these perks and dividends of democracy, it never gets to reach these people. But when it's time to vote, ballot boxes will always find a way to these rural areas. If ballot boxes can find their way there, then all these things that we enjoy in urban communities should also find its way to rural communities. That's the way we can actually wake the sleeping giant of development. I hope you learned something, and I hope it ignited a fire in you. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.